Focusing on the Nasdaq 100 and the S&P 500 has been ultimately the key to success here on the channel. And that's what we're covering today. But despite what's happening with China, despite what's happening with inflation, despite across the board, the bank concerns, we continue to follow these technicals day in and day out, day in and day out. So that's what's going to be our focal point here on the day. Now, Wednesday, again, it's going to be one of the most influential days probably over the next 2 to 3 weeks. So we need to be paying close attention to the data pool that comes out there. But I'm going to continue to say the same thing. Until data shifts and shows that inflation is rising, okay, we are not going to flip into a bearish thesis. Now, again, the technicals and the fundamentals have disconnected from the market, okay? Fundamentally, there's a lot of issues. Technically speaking, as we go over this in the video, you're going to see we continue to stair step to the upside, mounting every key level. And today we did just that, something we continue to mention day in and day out. So let's jump right into it. Now, before we get into that content, I ask you to do two things. Consider liking and subscribing. It helps us out tremendously. I try to give you as most unbiased opinions here on the channel. I try to break down the news, give you fundamentals, and then also give you the technicals so you can trade on your own. And you could almost use this channel as an indicator. You need to do your own DD, your own research. You should never just jump into any trades that we mention. Always research it for yourself. This isn't just to protect me, but it's really to protect you. Because on the internet, I'm going to tell you right now, people really care about themselves, getting clicks, getting views, and making as much money as possible. I love getting clicks. I love getting views. I have to clickbait with some of these titles sometimes, but here on the channel, we pride ourselves on giving you the most unbiased and transparent opinions. Win, lose, or draw. That's what I want to mention. Also, too, I will say right now, the Discord. So we just switched over and partnered with a new platform that's basically running all our transactions and managing a lot of the back end stuff for us. So we opened a few spots on the monthly. They're probably gonna be available for the next 24 hours. Then we're gonna close it like we were closed before. The link is down below, only $30 a month right now for the basic access tier to let you know, but let's jump back into the video. So first of all, let's cover some of the news today. Now, today was interesting. So we had some downside this morning. We mentioned the fear of getting downside because of what was happening with China, Taiwan, etc. We also mentioned yesterday, the big focal point was, is this a dick measuring competition, if you will? Is this China trying to flex and say, you need to realize we're in charge? And that is kind of what it seems like. But I will say, America is instigating it somewhat because we're kind of not crossing a line, but poking the bear, if you will, by inviting, Taiwan president over here, etc. But then jumping into today, we had some pretty bad news. And anytime bad news comes out around Apple, it's bad for the SPY. So it was a double whammy this morning. Apple's Mac shipments fall more than 40% worse than major rivals. This is a very interesting statement because I want you to understand, okay? Mac sales, if we look back at last year, were probably the biggest factor in making Apple their money. If you look at what happened with the iPhone, you kind of saw like some stagnation in sales. The Mac we mentioned last year as well. It was doing crazy numbers. And so when you start to see a slowdown like this, it has to be a cause for concern, but it makes sense with what's happening with consumer credit and the rise in fees. So it makes sense that they're not maybe getting as many out. The shipments of total numbers are dropping. That makes sense. But 40% compared to rivals is never, it's never good. That's a concern. However, what I will say is if you look at Apple's chart, we're going to go into the chart here in a second, but if you look here, you broke down, you have like an ascending triangle, but again, ascending triangle is a pattern for continuation. This is not a continuation move right here. But what I will say near the end of the day, you broke above, mounted, and you look pretty decent. I played calls for a little bit on it. I got on it at the end of the day. I just wanted to be flat. I don't want to be in anything overnight. That's what I have. That's what I'm kind of looking at there. But let's get into the Nasdaq, get into what's happening here. Again, what is the one level we continue to harp on, to push down your throat? It's like if I was a crazy ex-girlfriend, right? And I was just choking you, saying over and over, why don't you love me, right? Why don't you listen, people? Why don't you listen? When we look at what's happening here, the February highs right there, that is all that matters right now. This is our February swing high from when we had our FOMC meeting. Remember when we had a little bit of drop in inflation and everything was looking buenos nachos and everyone was like, this is great. Powell was like, we look really robust. We look good. We're on track to pause. And and then obviously we had the bank crisis that pushed us down, but that was our highs. Now, since then, what's happened, right? We had a battle at this level, basically from March 20th through 29th, rejection over and over and over. What happens on the 30th? You mount, you push up for like 400 points, you come back down, one test, now almost two, and that's where we're at. And if we look at today's action, whether you like it or not, I don't really care. From a technical standpoint, we are ignoring fundamentals, we are ignoring the issues, the writing on the wall, and we continue to look good. That's what I'm telling you right now. You can't go short. You can't start hammering the short, but unless you're day trading. For day trading, do whatever you want. I don't really care. It doesn't really matter. You're focusing on a 5 to 1 minute chart, right? But if you're looking at this from a swing perspective of really getting a grasp of the way the market's moving, you can't go short until you break this level, okay? The end, that's all that matters right here. The second you break through this level, you start hammering it, because guess what? In Nasdaq is going to get his cheeks clapped. That's not what we want to see, okay? Right? Basic 101 technical viewpoints there. Don't even have to go to college for that, okay? That's what we're looking at. On top of this, on the daily, look at this action. Look at the bounce back. Look at the next sign of strength. We bounce here on August 6th. Where we hit that level. We go all the way back up to highs around 13.16, 13, almost 2. We do it again, and we bounce back even higher. We reached highs today of 13.25, 205. This move was actually stronger than our first move. I really want you to let that sink in of how you're moving here, okay? Bulls continue to show, and based on volume, and again, so you know, I'm not being biased. I have no long sitting in the market right now, nothing like that. But our volume is pretty lackluster. So this tells me a few things, okay? One, I do believe volume will step back up, come into CPI. And for everyone last week that was saying, oh, it's a short week, we don't get good volume. I'm just saying right now it's Monday, and you have the same volume. You're probably going to come out a little bit higher because there's after hours, but that's it. Okay, so for all those people saying, oh, it's a short week, false, fake news. Same amount of volume as you got last week. Nothing's changed so far. You're waiting for CPI, the end. And so when we look at that, it also tells me that sellers aren't being that aggressive. That's the next thing we need to talk about. But there is something interesting I do want to mention. We're going to bring up Bookmap real quick and look at what's happening here on ES Futures, the SPY, right? And when we look at the SPY here on Bookmap, interesting behavior. Beginning of the day, before we really flip the switch, right? Let's talk about what happened here. Beginning of the day, around 8:30 in the Bookmap. It's basically showing you level 2 data. The link, if you want to check them out, it's down below, so feel free to. And as you saw this morning, we saw dips and all this move up. It was really stagnant, like kind of flaggy, and then we dropped pretty hard. But this morning was interesting because we saw more of this iceberg dark pool data, right? 1, 2, 3, pretty aggressive in my opinion, right? Still trying to short on this way up. And then when you drop down, I was like, man, this is pretty ugly. It's not what you want to see. And then we held that 4,100 again on ES, and then we pushed back up. And then we started seeing buying here. And I was kind of like, okay, this is better. This is what we want to see. We want to see buyers step in. We want to see bigger orders. We don't just want to see shorts come in going into CPI, because that could set up for choppy trading and not what we want to do. Not necessarily that the shorts matter going into CPI and giving you a different result. Yes, you can follow big money and what they're doing. However, I'm more interested in how I'm trading right now, because I'm not looking to swing. I'm not looking to grab dated calls, maybe some stock, but I'm not being crazy with it. You need to understand that. So when we come back into this chart and we look where we're at, and you start getting some crazy buying here at the end of the day again. So far, right now, markets are telling us a few things. They don't care really what's happening with China. They don't. Or they just don't believe that China's going to cross that boundary line, right? And then 2, it's looking like they're liking CPI expectations. I'm going to tell you right now, you're getting another big iceberg here in the after hours. So if I look at that, I'm like, man, this is interesting. Has me definitely on the edge of my seat. Now, if I go a little bit deeper, we're going to look really quick at the expectations. And a guy in Discord mentioned this to me, but I want to talk about this. So first, we're going to do CPI year over year. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, CPI, core CPI. Core CPI is more important. Okay, I'm going to tell you that right now. So core CPI is what you want to see drop. CPI, it's a little, it's not as important in my opinion. I think core CPI gives you a better visual of what's actually happening with inflation. My opinion. Okay, that's my opinion, what I look at. Okay, now when we go in here, we scroll down real quick. As you see in here though, let's look at something. So this is the expectation for Wednesday. And this is something that has me concerned, to say the least, because I don't think inflation is going to rise, really. I really don't think our numbers are going to be higher than 6% of what we were at last time, or even like 5.6. But the problem is they changed this forecast. So the forecast was around 5.6, 5.8, I believe. and they just revised it down further to 5.2. And the question is if it comes out above the revision, is that bad news? I would assume yes. Anytime it beats a revision, it's never good news. And the problem I have with this is not can inflation drop this much? Well, it is can inflation drop this much, but it's a dramatic drop, right? So going back into October and like even September, we were at 9.1, we dropped down to 8.7. 8.7 was a 0.6, right? 0.1, 0.7. That was a big one right here in October to November. That was our biggest one. Spoke too soon. 0.8. That was our biggest one in December. I knew it was like December or November. And then 0.3, 0.2. But traditionally what happens is, let's say, we have, this is a cup, right? My iPhone's a cup. Bear with me. Obviously it's not a cup. But as you start to fill up, right? Or inflation's at the tippity top and starts to go down, it gets harder to get that out, right? It gets harder for it to drop. So let's say it drops really quick, 1%. You're not just going to keep dropping 1%, 1%, 1%. Typically it'll drop 1%, then 0.7, then 0.5, because inflation is not just going to drop rapidly. That wouldn't make any sense. Like, that'd be like if it's dropping 1% each month, then it would just drop really quickly down to 2%. And then the Fed would be like, well, look, our targets are easily manageable. We're there, bippity boppity, but we're not. So it's really crazy that we have this and if it happens, it happens. Awesome. 5.2, God bless, right? That would be cool. But it leads me to just sit back and be like, man, do we really think that's going to happen? Right? And then it leads me into the next thing, which is the forecast of the year over year CPI, core CPI. So they actually believe core CPI year over year is going to rise 0.1. Okay? Which again, that happens, it would not be ideal for the market. But we have to also price in now this expectation that they think CPI and core CPI are going to deviate this much, which I don't think it will. Okay. Personal opinion, what I'm looking at, again, and core CPI, you can see it's dropping obviously a lot slower. It is. But again, if it rises, that would not be good. So that's what I'm looking at right now. And I don't think core CPI is going to rise. I just don't. I don't believe it. I don't think it yet. It could happen. But again, I'm not betting on the market right there. It makes no sense to take that risk. So again, as we jump in here, we're leading into a very interesting Wednesday. I would say right now, tip right now, if you want to leave the video after this, just be patient. Don't force any trades here. Be patient. Don't be too aggressive. That's my one tip for you right now. So if we go to the 4 hour, that's what we're looking at. Continue to mount that level, continue to push up. If we can get above 32 and really get into this 32, 32.50 range, you're looking good. Over 32.40, high possibility to test those highs of around 13.35. And honestly, my clear target here is around 13.43, and then from there around 13.7. That's what we've been aiming for. And so far, you're looking like you're on that path for the Nasdaq. Okay, that's my personal opinion. Going to ES, S&P futures instead of Qs. Very similar instead of you're mounting this 4,100 region there. Shout out Sir from Discord. You also called it out here. If you zoom all the way back out, you can go back into, I believe, February highs from last year. I'm just going to bring this up really quick. You can see right there. So February lows, from 2022. You dip down, bounce very hard. You can see that's where you're bouncing as well as you zoom in here. Boom, boom, boom. That's where you're at. It makes sense. And so far, these weekly candles still look really good. You still look great. Sorry, not what you want to hear. You look great as far as technicals continue to go here. And ES arguably looks better than the Nasdaq, and you're looking to get back over this area and start pushing back into some of these highs. So again, good behavior, what we want to see. Giving you a breakdown of SPY and these ETFs here, so I know you're going to have questions. 200 SMAs down here. You look really good. You could argue that this is a bull flag. It's ugly to call it that because you had like this narrow drop and then kind of stagnated. Again, my personal opinion. So I wouldn't necessarily consider it a bull flag, but it looks really good. You're trying to get out of it. You're trying to push back up. You're holding that 408. You're mounting it once again. If you come into something like the 1 hour chart, 15-minute chart, it gets even prettier because you can see where you're bouncing at all together here at around 405.8. You're bouncing very easily, pushing back up. Again, beautiful. Again. IWM, another great indicator to be looking at here as well. IWM, the Russell, it's a very good viewpoint of the risk on versus risk off mentality. And as you can see this morning, while the rest of the market was dipping, I was telling Discord as well. It's interesting. You're seeing everything dip. Well, Dow was not dipping, but SPY and Qs However, IWM was mooning the entire time, all the way into 10 a.m., which was a clear sign that buyers were still in the market and they weren't going to let you drop down. Another good sign. IWM though, I'm going to tell you right now, you need to get above around like 178 and you need to hold above 178 to really be bullish, around 179, 178, right? If you get above this level and you can hold, I think you're in a risk on mentality. I'm going to tell you right now, you've been in this range for a hot minute as we've gone back. You can clearly see this region here. You've just been sitting here since basically beginning of March. So we just sat here, haven't done anything, mounting, looks good. You could actually argue, again, for all of my people out there that just love looking at some of these charts, you could argue 100%, and you're not going to like it. It's a little ugly, but you 1,000% could argue it's just really ugly right here with the shoulder. You're not as far down that you are making an inverted head and shoulders. Boom, 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 trying to push up. If this does take place, you're going to see a lot of aggression from buyers happening on the market. Okay. So again, it's interesting. All this is taking place going into CPI, which is why I continue to say you have all these great breakout formations happening. But again, the major thing we're looking for is the data that comes up, because the CPI comes out good. You meet expectations. You're going to move good. Of course, CPI drops. That's what you want to see. It's all we care about. And we don't think oil data is going to hit us quite yet and affect the CPI reading. That's my personal opinion. So again, that's where I'm at. I'm being conservative, but also too, I'm preparing myself and getting myself ready for some of these plays. Now I want to go into some stocks that I'm liking. Okay. First one up, I've been mentioning them a lot. I think Schwab I think banks are risky. I'm going to tell you right now. Okay. I want to be really clear before I go further into this at all. But I will say Schwab, I can't help but like it here. As you can see, you were making lower highs, breaking down. This is a 4-hour chart as well. And you're pushing up. So if this actually holds, you're making a higher low here. And that is ideal. That's what you'd want to see. But when we look at Schwab, I like it a lot. I think you have a lot of opportunity. Minimum upside as far as like stock goes, I'd be looking towards 65. I think you have the room. I think banks aren't really that much in danger. The big banks, even more so something like Charles Schwab. Why? Because they're not operating like a bank is, right? You know, they're not dealing with the same customer base. They don't have as much risk as these other guys. Schwab, big fan, lots of insider buying happening, lots of shares being awarded, but there's no real insider selling happening. So if I'm going for banks and I'm looking for opportunity and I'm searching for it, Charles Schwab is screaming my name. I love it. Looks good. Beautiful name. Absolutely love it. Charles Schwab. Keep it on your watch list. Looks really good. Now today we had semiconductors looking good. So this morning while we had that dip happening, look at what semiconductors doing, specifically AMD. AMD, I was looking down for that like 90, 89. You just didn't get it. Right at open though. Immediate push up. AMD, $90, 91, all the way up to almost 96. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful push. Now AMD isn't the one I'm watching for. You're going to hate me. You're going to be like, Tyler, you're fucking crazy. And I agree. I'm kind of crazy, man. I do agree. Looking at NVIDIA, dude, you continue to do the same thing. Now I can argue, and you need to watch out for this because again, you're having a lot of great setups happening around the same time. Possible, it's a complex head and shoulders. It's ugly though. I hate it. Right, you're right there, there, and there. However, what I'm looking at this for is the opportunity of a possible, yes, ascending triangle. I mean, this thing is screaming my name. I think you had some false breakouts here, but ultimately you are looking very good. This region from basically 276 up to highs around 280 has been a pain in the ass. Zooming out to something like the daily though, it makes sense where you're finding resistance. All the way in this is going to be a pain in the ass to get above. But NVIDIA, with what's happening with Taiwan, it makes sense of what's happening with it, right? If Taiwan gets hurt, NVIDIA, their products are going to become a lot more valuable. Chips in general are going to become a lot more valuable. So definitely something we need to be paying attention to and watching. Again, I'm not just FOMOing. I'm not just buying here. And if you look at like something like the 15-minute, dude, it looks incredible. It looks incredible, guys. You can't even deny it. You really can't. Again, you can draw it out, see it for yourself. Really interesting, really nice play. Again, it's not the most beautiful setup, so bear with me. I'm going to bring that out right there so you can see. But again, I love it. You're pushing up. If we can get them out above local highs, you have room up to like 285, 286. And then ultimately, if you can get that push through with semiconductors, which you're already getting, you have a lot of room there. It's just something to watch for. I'm not playing it just yet. Okay, I want to make that really clear. I'm not rushing in, not FOMOing, being careful, sitting on my hands, right? Meta, big fan of Meta here. Meta's big level that we've been watching though, 213. Okay, it looks better on my trading view chart because I have so much drawn on there. Actually, let's go to trading view really quick so you can see. Sorry if your eyes are blinded, but if we look here at Meta, zooming out to like the 1 hour chart so you can see. Meta, very interesting name. And you're going to notice very similar patterns across the board. But when we look here at Meta, go to like the 15 minute, we pushed up, hit our level, dropped down, mounted, continue pushing up. Really great movement. Mounted here, pushed up. Mounted here, pushed up. So you look good here on Meta. Again, you do have earnings coming up. At the end of the week, we have bank earnings. Those will be important and worth watching. So I think that's another thing on Schwab that you have to be careful about. But when we look at these names, there's opportunity. It's just screaming at me in particular. I love where we're at. And if you look at something like Meta, they're getting away from viewing this mentality of metaverse, which we all hate. I mean, I hate it more than anyone. But the thing that I like that they're doing is they're focusing on making money through WhatsApp, through payment transfers, and what they're doing in Brazil. That's what we love to see. The paying for subscriptions as well on Instagram. These are instant money making opportunities. And that's something that Meta has not been focused on. So once they shifted that focus to there, that had to have been where we were looking to make our money there. Now going into something like the daily, so you can see here, Meta gets very, very interesting. And so again, I like to mention some of these things before they happen so we can be prepared. Because if Meta is to get above these levels, it's the closest thing to, in my opinion, Netflix or, yeah, it's the closest thing to Netflix, right? Netflix was a monster play. Remember, it pushed up. Everyone loved it. You made money. You were happy. Now, if we start getting above some of these levels, and right now, honestly, I think you have room, 217, 216 being a little bit conservative, but 224, 236. But if somehow we get above 236, 237, I mean, we're talking about a lot of illiquidity up here, guys. A lot. And I'm not saying it's going back to 52-week highs or back to 2021 highs. I'm not saying that. However, though, we got some issues here. Everyone said the same thing about Netflix. Okay, when we talked about Netflix here on the channel, you're like, no, there's no way. You're not going to fill that gap to 330. But you did. You did. And you still look really good. And you're still making higher lows in the daily time frame, right? They're going to say the same thing about when you eventually try to fill back to 500. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen today. Not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. But when we look at some of these value plays you're getting, it makes sense. Names like NVIDIA are already almost back to their all-time highs. Apple, grinding back. We can be in denial all day long about some of the value of these names, but they're bouncing back and they're grinding back to their real value. Like Apple, I mean, you're coming into a major level. That makes sense that you're getting a dip there. But again, things to just be viewing. Microsoft, again, another name that's just so undervalued. It is what it is. And once we get back into, and people want to talk about this PE ratio and where we're at. And I get it. I get what you mean. You're trying to be logical. I get it. But I just want you to think about something. If we are not in a bull market right now, which we all can agree, what do you think these stocks are going to do when we get into just a regular market to where there's not a concern of inflation? What do we think Microsoft and Apple and Amazon and Netflix and Meta are going to do if they're already moving this aggressive? You really need to think about like the rationale there. I'm not saying to buy options. I'm not saying to go heavy into these, right? I'm just trying to prepare you for some of these setups because, again, my focus right now, be patient. But if CPI comes out good, I'm ready to hit the buy button, right? Y'all know us here. We like to be patient and then pounce on the opportunity. Last one up, Tesla. Tesla, we mentioned this one, beautiful. I mean, it literally went textbook. I mean, trade doesn't end up better than this. I don't know what else to say. I made a short about this as well. I think I put it even on, on YouTube, but it was mainly on Instagram. If you're not following Instagram, the link is down below. You should definitely check it out because it's all of our short form content there. But again, the 200 SMA weekly today, you bounced right down there, right down, boom, 176, push right off of it. Okay. I was screaming at Discord. People were trying, we should go short. I'm like, no, do not go short on Tesla at the 200 weekly. What happened last time? We bounced a few times below it, met back above, and then pushed right back up. Today, I want to give a little bit of a shout out of what we did. Only trade, I took 2 trades today, but the main trade I took was primarily Tesla. Okay. What do we look here? Very patient. Now I'm looking really primarily to scalp here. That's all I want to do if I'm trading anything. 185s, 320, Highs were 3.7. A lot of upside here. Bull flag at 181. Got back. And again, this is just to show you that I didn't get in at lows. I was patient though. I had a plan. We came up to my level, retraced, bounced, didn't even hit VWAP and pushed back up. Got back above the 90 MA. I was in business. I was patient, people. This is the point I want to make to you. Patience, patience, patience. They went from 3.2. I ended up closing out most of mine at 4.6. Got a trailing stop and it just hit. But they went a little bit higher, almost to $5 a pop, right? So I want to just let this be. And these aren't degenerate bets, right? I'm not just gambling and taking crazy plays. That's not what I'm doing. I want that to be known. Special shout out also. One more thing. Guy in Discord. He has been grinding in Discord. He has been trying to learn. He has been trading. I can't give him a. He's been journaling. He's been doing it all. He's been killing it. Today, this is probably one of the biggest gains I've seen in Discord from a member almost. No, this is not the biggest one, but it's up there. Banana hammock. I sized up with confidence today. First 5-figure day, and it was a banger. Bless for real. The dogs are eating. Thank you for your patience, Jay and Hefe. $31,000 day almost. Again, it's about teaching you guys. All we're doing, and again, you don't even have to be in Discord. You don't have to be. You can be here on YouTube, get in the lives every day, 10:30 a.m. Central, we're live. Twitter, our short form content. We are doing so much free content as well, right? I want to just prove, though, that the system works when you work. You have to understand that. The system doesn't work if you are not working, right? The car doesn't work if the engine isn't working, if there's no gas in the tank, right? The car won't, it's a cool car, but it doesn't move if you don't do nothing. You can have $1 million account, but if you don't put in the work and you don't try to figure it out, try to move from where you are to where you want to be, you are never going to be successful. A Discord can't do that for you. A paid signal service can't do that for you. I don't care. It can't work. It's like everything else in life. You have to be able to put in work. Banana hammock has been here since when? August 16th, 2022. So congratulations, Banana. I love to see it. I love seeing you guys win almost as much as I love seeing myself make money. Okay? I'm going to be transparently honest. I love making money when it comes to the market. It gets me off. It's my high. I love winning. I love getting better every day. But I love seeing someone come into Discord, learn how to trade, understand it, not just rely on us, but step up to the plate and kill it as well. Congratulations. I don't know if you're trading Tesla or whatever you're trading, but congrats. That's to wrap the video. If you have any questions, comment down below. Video coming out tomorrow. Tips for right now. You still look bullish. The only time you go short, in my opinion, is if the Nasdaq breaks below February highs. You break below, you hammer the short button. Until then, you expect to bounce over and over and over. That's what you do. CPI is Wednesday, an hour before market open. That's the most important thing as well. Have a good one, traders. See you tomorrow.